When we do, we stand up, we lock arms, we fight back, and then we win.
The Maine Senate race is heating up now that Democrats have chosen to pick Troy Jackson to face off against Susan Collins come November. And what was just a few weeks ago a complete and utter shit show for the Democrats is now a nightmare scenario for Susan Collins, as Troy Jackson is a strong, progressive candidate ready to annihilate Susan Collins come the general in November. And he's already raised over $1 million for his campaign, all from grassroots organizers. And a new poll just shows that Troy Jackson is actually leading Susan Collins already by 3 percentage points. And if it couldn't get any worse for Susan Collins, new financial disclosures have just come out, and it shows that Susan Collins was taking checks from some of the men named in the Epstein files. Yeah, you heard that right. Susan Collins accepted campaign donations from known Jeffrey Epstein associates while actively working on legislation to block the release of the Epstein files. Talk about insane levels of corruption here. In September of 2025, Collins accepted $10,000 from an Epstein associate, Casey Wasserman, including $7,000 to her campaign committee and $3,000 to a PAC that is supported by that supports Susan Collins. And then there's a crazy bunch of details about this guy being a complete and utter freak. We won't even get into it. Another person who has supported Susan Collins is Leon Black, another known Epstein associate, as well as Elon Musk, both of which gave $2,800 to PACs or directly to Susan Collins's campaign / committees. So again, just more and more information that our politicians are in the interests of the Epstein class rather than working people. It's just so peachy clean for our girl Susan Collins, who is losing more and more followers by the day, and they're turning towards Troy Jackson, who is kicking some serious ass. Take a look.
For 30 years, Susan Collins has told us that she's concerned. She's told us that she's troubled, and she's told us that she's disappointed.
I'm all those things about her.
But when the stakes are the absolute highest, too often she's stood with Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and the other big corporations that already have all the power. Maine does not need 6 more years of concern. We need courage. We need a fighter. And we need someone who remembers exactly who sent them to Washington.
Troy Jackson there poking fun at Susan Collins's habit of being concerned and disappointed about everything. And I think this will tell you what I mean.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
I'm very disappointed.
I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed.
I was really disappointed. Well, I'm very disappointed in the president's actions.
And that really troubles me.
And now, not only is Susan Collins known to be a shill for Epstein's buddy, she's also a big fan of Pete Hegseth, another predator, war criminal, monster, freak that's in power right now. Here she is, shaking hands with her old pal, saying some nice words after a hearing earlier this week, and Troy Jackson responded to this lovely little image here of two besties, two besties hanging out, saying, Susan Collins getting chummy with the architect of Trump's Iran war, which is costing taxpayers $1 billion a day while our hospitals shutter and our grocery prices explode. And Troy Jackson is just kicking it into high gear right now. He is campaigning hella hard right now, focusing on expanding his coalition to beat Susan Collins. Take a look.
There is a place for you in this movement. Because we're not going to defeat Susan Collins by making this movement smaller. There's no way that that's ever going to work. We will defeat her by making it bigger, deeper, and more rooted in the lives of Maine people, as different as we may be. I know what it's like to be underestimated, and I know what happens when working people decide that they've had enough. When we do, we stand up, we lock arms, we fight back, and then we win.
And Troy Jackson has some real momentum here, coming off the heels of a very terrible situation, obviously with Graham Plattner, but Mainers seem to be ready just to move on and focus on the actual mission at hand, which is to defeat Susan Collins come November. And they understand that it's not about the man, it's about the message and the organization and the movement that is being built, because Susan Collins is an awful candidate who rubber stamps everything that Donald Trump says, who discredits the people of Maine, and who supports people like David Brulette, the ICE agent who unfortunately just killed a man in Maine and then had this to say about his ex-wife.
Every single female in your bloodline is nothing but a disgusting fat and all of you should have your throat cuts. Yeah, he should.
These are the kind of people that Susan Collins is giving the seal of approval to. Violent, dangerous men attacking, threatening, and killing people on the streets. And Susan Collins is kicking her feet and smiling along and rubber stamping more funds for ICE. Just like, it's absurd. She is insane, right? And as Jennifer Welch points out here in this clip, she thinks that Susan Collins is beyond terrible. Let's take a look.
Susan Collins is absolutely a domestic terrorist in the United States Senate. And she has enriched herself and her husband. And she has been a complete fascist collaborator of the highest order. I would even say that she has segued from fascist collaboration to full-blown fascism. The fact that she is not robustly standing up and standing out against this killing. And again, if you are a big Christian person, it should make no difference to you the legal status of this individual. He was here legally, but to me, it makes no difference. A life is a life. And the quantifying of life over in MAGA circles is really one of the larger sins that I see. You know, these people, these white men that are all in the Epstein files, they're the most important lives. And then you have women like Susan Collins that carry the water for that style of patriarchal corruption and allows that. And then you just go all the way down. But here's the problem with this type of politics. A type of politics that leaves someone behind eventually will leave everyone behind. So they're leaving behind these immigrants, and eventually they will come for you.
And she is exactly right? Like, I mean, Susan Collins is a dangerous force in American politics, and she must be replaced. And she is working for the interests of the Epstein class, billionaires, not the American people, and she is a puppet for Donald Trump to push his violent agenda, right? We all know this. Thankfully, Mainers also realize this, and Troy Jackson has already built up a very large following. Again, raising $1 million, he's campaigning hard. Imagine what another few months of campaigning can do, because the election isn't until November. So there's a few months from now until then that Troy Jackson can continue to build this coalition against Susan Collins, because being a progressive now is more popular than ever. There is such a genuine tide shift happening in American politics right now that corporate Democrats and MAGA alike are just, they don't want to admit it, right? They don't want to admit that people are becoming more progressive and actually don't like, billionaires actually being treated better than regular people. Just take a look at this poll, which really blew me away. In New Hampshire, AOC leads in the 2028 presidential primary polling with 22%, but that's not the biggest part of this story. Go down that list and you'll see that Bernie Sanders is at 6%. So let's be real here. If you're voting for Bernie, you're probably going to be an AOC supporter and vice versa. So realistically, AOC is actually polling much closer to 27, 28% when her second place Buttigieg is down at 21. Now, of course, this is early polling. It's 2026. We're not getting too far into this, but it's just an extremely strong showing for an extremely progressive candidate, and just shows that people are actually ready for change in this country and to vote for someone who will put the interests of people above corporations, above Epstein-class billionaires, above oil lobbyists, above Israel, above all of these things that have been a negative influence on American politics for so many decades. We have had enough. But I think that's going to do it for me. If you agree that Susan Collins needs to get out of the Senate come November, be sure you subscribe to U.S. Democratic Socialists for more news like this. But I think it's going to do it. I'm Iago Lashua. Have a good day. Goodbye.